Today I sat down with an incredible entrepreneur and someone who I would say is homegrown out of here, Israel, where I sit and record most of my podcasts and where I spend most of my time. Gilad Warter is someone who has really cut his teeth in the e-commerce and Amazon space and doesn't pretend to be this big hotshot flyer aggregator, but really talks at a genuine, authentic and holistic level as to what it's been like to bootstrap and build a business, how they've raised some capital, acquiring brands, and just really an honest look at the journey that they've been on, and really resonated with me. And if you're someone who's going through this journey, looking to grow your business and understanding that no one is perfect, then I'd say this is the episode for you. And yeah, again, Gilad, just a great guy and someone that really resonated with me. So I hope, like I did, you get a lot of value out of this episode. Welcome to Successful Scales, the show where I talk to world-class professionals on what it takes to scale successful businesses. I dive deep asking questions to people who are running unicorn businesses, to raising funds, to buying businesses, mergers and acquisitions, IP and patent law, what is to manage performance management. I mean, the list goes on. The idea really is, how do I create knowledge and learning for you guys listening in? And of course, myself, getting the floor with people who I, in many cases, would never dream to share a room with. Before we jump into the episode, I've got to give a special thank you to our sponsors. Firstly, over at Global Wide Advisors, a leading digital consumer products investment bank focused on optimizing the sales process. An incredible team, always happy to pick up the phone and educate you or anyone about the sales process and what you should really consider, and can obviously help take you to market or even acquire businesses. I ring them for just about everything these days. Us over at Multiply Me, we are the end-to-end executive search and HR function into the Philippines, helping find better talent and onboarding them effectively. And last but not least, Escala, our management consultancy focused on process improvement, where we help build better systems for your business. That's all the ads you're going to get from me, ladies and gentlemen. The rest is all about learning. I hope you really enjoy and get as much out of these sessions as I do, sitting face-to-face with some of the world-renowned leaders in their respective fields, asking them the tough questions that they're not often asked. All right, Gilad, welcome to Successful Scales, my friend. How you doing?
I'm doing well, Yoni. How's it going? Thanks for having me.
Mate, it's going great, and really excited about this one. We connected a couple months ago, and I would say right off the bat, just loved your authenticity. You were a real guy, someone also here in Israel that, fortunately for me, speaks perfect English, having grown up a little bit in the US as well, or at least having American parents. So that's always a help. But mate, before I jump into any of this, before we get into a topic that's particularly close to my heart, I'd love if you could share with the audience a little bit about yourself and what you're up to today.
100%. So what are we up to today? I mean, I guess I'll just kind of, in a nutshell, just kind of give the story of where we started. It will kind of explain, I think, very well what we're doing today and where it came from. So me and my brother started selling on Amazon about 7 years ago, maybe a bit more. Really kind of out of the blue. We did not come from e-commerce background. Just kind of heard about it, said we should try this out, and kind of jumped in, like very, very randomly, just kind of jumped into the Amazon FBA space. And it was very, very much trial and error from the beginning. Like I said, no real prior experience. So obviously, just kind of needed to get going and try stuff out. And really that's what we've been doing for, the first few years, researching product, private labeling it, selling it, obviously seeing some success, seeing a lot of failure initially. And we just kind of slowly and surely built up two different brands that we actually hold until today, to be honest. They're still running and operating. And we've been doing that again. We've been doing it for a few years, and over time, we've gained experience, gained understanding of the the industry, of the niche, and over the course of time, we kind of naturally, it wasn't even really a real, business development type of thought. We started kind of managing, other sellers on Amazon. So that obviously kind of rolled into like, hey, let's do an agency. And we really just started kind of managing a lot of Israeli sellers, to be honest, and also a few American, a few European. And we did, kind of like a A to Z type of management. That was kind of the scope of what we were doing. So that was already about a few years in. We kind of, again, had a lot of knowledge, started running an agency. Definitely can say a lot of good things and bad things about the agency. Today, we do not run the agency at all because about 2 years ago, we had an investment into our company. It's actually someone we know personally who just kind of, we've been discussing what we've been doing, what we're up to. Like the idea, we were discussing back then, like building, new brands and scaling the agency. That was kind of the concept back then. But then obviously, being inside the industry and see what's going on, we, saw the whole kind of acquisition space start taking off. And our investor kind of helped us with this, roadshow. And we went and raised, again, through a personal network, a certain amount of capital that we used to kind of start off this acquisition, journey. And slowly and surely over the course of the last 2 years, we've done a certain amount of acquisitions and kind of, really, I want to say pivoted, kind of let go of the agency. And today we're in a position where, I guess we can be called an aggregator because that's what we do. I mean, we're not, not one of the big names out there for sure. But we run and operate our own 2 brands, actually another brand that we started a few years back, and it's quite small, but we're still operating it. And we also, again, we've raised capital and made a few very nice acquisitions. And we have, mainly Israeli, but also international team that's currently, running and operating our, brands, scaling them. And we're still, continuing on with acquisitions. So that's who we are today.
Mate, I love it. I love the story. I loved it when I heard sort of the first time as well, and that when I started out with sort of that authenticity, like it's not about, look at us, we're an aggregator, we're acquiring businesses, we'll buy you, we're this, we're that, like, extremely humble, but you are doing, whether it's at a large scale or a small scale or wherever you're at, you sort of very organically found your way into this and, you really highlighted it as well. You've had some failures, you've had some successes as well. It's not this linear experience to success. And I think, for people listening and for me as well, it really resonates. Like anyone who sits there saying, and sort of saying like, the sun shines out of my butthole. Like it's not the case when you're trying to run. Yeah, it's not the case. And, people are always trying to sort of portray that external image of like, look how good we are and, look what's going on. Like it's not that. But I mean, honestly, like probably one of the most organic stories because you hear, you mentioned the fact that you guys went on a roadshow and you raised some more capital, but, just taking a step back, like someone clearly, you said there's so many topics that I want to ask you about, like working with your brother, what that's like, but we'll get to that in a second. You had obviously a friend of the family, whoever this relationship was, actually see what you guys were up to and organically say, hey, I'd like to put some money into this and put my money to work, which led I believe the same person take you on a roadshow to go and help sort of. So you instead of going the typical route where a lot of people like, you have to have some wins on the board, you go and you do 6 months, 12 months, you try and raise capital. It's like a full-time job. You've sort of like found your way into this network and then grown. Like, I got to ask, like from your position on that whole, like, it doesn't sound like that was your intent. You didn't start off thinking like, here I am, this is the vision. I want to raise all this capital, buy all these businesses, aggregate that. Like, how did that come about? How did that come about in the first place? And like, what was that journey like? Were you sort of led into it and said like, we should go on a roadshow, like we should really raise more capital? Or was it like, I think we're ready? Like, talk me through that experience.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think it starts off with, again, like, I guess me and my brother are entrepreneurs at heart, meaning, cool, we've started an Amazon business. I know a lot of people who start an Amazon business and see some success are like, okay, I'll sell this, or, this is enough. Like, I'll run it here and this is cool and I'm running my own business and I'm happy and all good. But we're obviously like, yeah, let's scale this. Let's make this bigger. So again, the first kind of phase after that was, like we said, either trying to like do it again, like, hey, let's start maybe another brand. And this is kind of in the, when we were talking about starting new brands, this is even when, having multiple accounts on Amazon was kind of a gray area and how that's done and so on. So kind of very like, yeah, let's see how we do this. And also the agency were like, hey, people reached out to us and were like, let's, have these guys help us. And then we're like, hey, if we're providing, a good service to one or two people, let's scale this and, why not? So, we started an agency. We even had a different name. I mean, I don't know if you know or whatnot, but we were not Enso Brands up until about 8-9 months ago. We were Advantix, and Advantix was kind of that agency name of ours, which again, today is kind of non-existent as we kind of rolled into where we are. But again, it was always kind of seeing, what's next. We actually use this on our, Enso Brands site as like our motto, because we really, really feel that that's kind of what drove us to where we are. And like you said, it's not, it wasn't a traditional, I guess, startup type of journey, right? Like, hey, here's a problem. I have this amazing solution and I'm going to go try and raise $100 million and become a unicorn. Like, we're operators. We do not come from technical background. My brother was a CEO of another company when we started kind of working that has nothing to do with e-commerce, as mentioned. And really, it was just like, how can we do this better? How can we scale this? I mean, over time, we have more experience. Hey, let's try to be an agency. The agency was working well. What's the next thing we can do? So just kind of being, inside the industry, inside what's going on in the Amazon world, in the e-commerce world, we were just always like, okay, let's take it to the next level. And again, the acquisitions was also, just kind of a natural, like you said, maybe organic, like understanding, light bulb moment, eureka moment of like, hey, why don't we just own our own brands instead of, servicing outward? Again, agencies can be extremely, extremely profitable and successful. So it's not anything to say about agencies. But just in the concept of like, hey, let's just do this inward. You know what I'm saying? Like we did this for, 2 or 3 brands that we own and we've serviced others. Let's just kind of bring everything in. And obviously, like you said, the concept of raising capital, again, for us coming from non-technical, non-VC kind of background, having a personal, almost friend kind of invest in us, he was also kind of the person who really, and by the way, he comes like from a totally different, he's very successful in the real estate world. So for him, like the acquisitions, it kind of resonated with him, and he was like, yeah, these are, it's a different type of asset. It's a different, mechanism all in all, but he understands the concept of like, let's hold on to an asset, let's scale it, let's bring it to new heights, and kind of do that over and over again. So he really kind of said, guys, let's do this roadshow. He has his own personal network, introduced us to others, and so on. And again, all of that capital also came from a very personal network, and not institutional, not high up VC kind of capital. So again, it was very much kind of us just, how can we scale? How can we do better? Like what's next? Where can we take our expertise, forward? And also again, getting, guidance from wiser and, successful people helping us kind of, direct us in the direction.
And again, like everything you're saying really resonates with me from the standpoint that like, I'm working now, sitting as the quote unquote CEO of the company. I'm just not one for titles. And I think that the CEO title particularly is a terrible title. It's like you're everything, or you're supposed to be anyway. And it's just, it's not. Anyway, the point I'm making here though, is I'm working on like what our 10-year vision is, but I wasn't doing that 3 years ago when we were creating the business. Like we're all figuring it out as we go along, and as we get to that next level and that next layer, it unlocks that next little bit that gives us that little bit of insight. And it's, you know, it's a really organic process, I would say, for everyone. Like at any point in your journey, and I often get asked, like, well, how are you able to, you know, operate all these businesses at the same time? And part of me is, my response is always, I have an amazing team. To be honest with you, it's always about the team, and it's always about what their inputs are, because I'm literally just the smallest little cog in what is a pretty large machine today. And it comes down to the team. But I just really wanted to highlight that point about the fact that, you know, we're all figuring out what, we don't know necessarily what's next. We can try and plan for it, but there's no commitment. But you guys made a very, I would say, wise decision, just given the fact that I spent 10 years or so in agency land. And, you know, I always say, like, the worst part about, you know, what's the worst part about owning an agency is the clients. And so I actually took a note before. And when you were explaining sort of your journey, you talked about the fact that you were running the agency. It was called Advantix. It became Enso Brands. But it sounded to me like it might have been from, I don't know if pressure is the word, but maybe guidance is a better term to use, from the investor to move away from the agency model. Did I read between the lines correctly? And I'd love to sort of hear.
Yeah.
Tell me how that
100%.
happened.
100%. So look, first of all, like, you know, something we say about the agency is that we probably had the wrong promise and the wrong clients at the same time. So again, the agency was working, and, you know, we had clients, and we had, you know, service, and we had a team, but it was a massive pain. And I'm sure, and, you know, Yoni, I've never worked with you in a Scala, but I know that that's kind of like, that is your core, you know, business there. And like, everything needs to be very, very well, you know, process and system and so on. And we were not there. And again, it's probably one of the, you know, the non-good things of like rolling into an agency, that we didn't have that real intention. It was, you know, again, organic is good, but on the other hand, it's not always good, because we rolled into it and we didn't have good systems in place. We didn't have a good enough understanding of, like, you know, this is what we provide. It was like, hey, we know how to run Amazon businesses, so like, we'll help you out too. Okay, that's way too general, way too broad. You know, you need to be very focused, very good systems in place, very good processes. And I think that us trying to scale that while not having all of that properly thought out was also something that was very, very draining. Now, obviously, we could have, you know, come to the conclusion of, you know, let's make the agency better. Let's go to Escala and they'll help us out. And, you know, we'll put things in systems, in processes, and what are we promising to our clients? But I think that, again, like you said, like, our investor was like, you know, guys, forget about that. You know, seeing where the industry is and seeing that you're struggling with, you know, having the right product for these clients. You know, it seems that a good kind of pivot would be to get into these acquisitions, because again, you're very good at operating these businesses. And it seems that you're going to utilize your abilities even much better than how you'd be able to do so in the agency world. So I think that was kind of the two pieces that really kind of led us to say, yeah, we're going to let go of agency life. Again, like I said, we could have said, no, let's stay away from acquisitions, but like, you know, really get the agency, you know, centralized and processed and systems in place and so on. But I think, again, being in that position where it was interesting, because the agency was growing, meaning we had people reaching out to us without even, like, you know, doing any outreach, doing any whatever. And we were like taking on clients, and anyway, we were growing, but it was like, you know, the water was dripping out of the pipe as we were kind of, you know, trying to grow even more. So it was kind of that, in the combination of, you know, the investor saying, I think this, you know, I think I can bring on, you know, capital for acquisitions. Because again, obviously doing acquisitions without the capital doesn't mean anything. Can't do acquisitions without it. So when we actually saw that it's working, and, you know, we were obviously still running the agency while we were raising money, it was very, you know, it was very natural evolving into it. We were still running the agency. We had agency clients until, you know, about 8 months ago, as we were kind of really doing this whole process. So again, he kind of, once we really saw that we can raise money and make an acquisition and kind of get going, then we were like, yep, it seems that this is where we should be. Again, just kind of factoring in agency life currently not 100% where it should be, and also kind of seeing that, hey, we can pull this off.
Yeah, look, I think for anyone going through the journey and trying to figure out, what is their unique ability as an individual and as a business, the road forward is paved with lots of different options. And, for a couple of entrepreneurial brothers, I'm sure ideas are aplenty and opportunities are all out there. But having that ability to have someone external or even internally create that clarity and focus of how you should be investing your time, I can only imagine it's gone a lot better for you. And if you broke down, and again, I'm just going to make these assumptions because I've lived, agency life for most of my career to date, it's that when you're working with clients, they might have the best product in the world, or they might have elements that are fantastic. What the challenge is that you're now, maybe a slave isn't the right word, but you're now on their time, right? So they're paying for your services. And if they're not delivering to the level that you need to actually maximize the output and performance for their brand, then ultimately, you're still going to be held accountable, even though it was their responsibility to get you what you needed. And so it's a very logical standpoint, or a logical move, to turn everything inboard and start focusing on your own brands and your own assets, because you can now control every variable, aspect of it that's within your control. Obviously, I mean, we're not going to get into it on this chat today, but we're all, when we talk about Amazon, we're all ultimately a slave to what could potentially happen that is well outside of our control, inside of the Amazon behemoth, right? We've all experienced that. But I just found it very, very interesting, or rather than interesting, it's just it seems like a very intelligent move for you guys to have made. And so, you're now in control, you're driving forward, you're making acquisitions on things that are going to work on the platform, and you continue to build out your team. So, I mean, we were having a chat before about some of the directions, and it's a challenging time right now in the market. It's no surprise to anyone. Very hard to raise capital at the moment. The cost of even debt is going up by literally the day. Interest rates are rising. It's a recession at the moment. There's so many challenges going on, and I think before we hit record on the camera, we were actually talking about the fact that it's probably one of the best opportunities for any smart movers if you can figure out the way in which you can either put capital to work and find the right people to invest in you, because the capital's not gone, just the market is shaken up, and no one wants to, no one's going to part with money. They want to figure out, what's going to happen. But if you can actually formulate an intelligent plan in a time where it's a bear market, and it seems to be a bear market everywhere, I mean, that's where you can have the absolute highest upside.
Yeah, 100%. I think that's actually a good selling point, right? To raise capital at this point in time. And again, just because, you said you like the authenticity, and I'll just share, and, we discussed this before the call. So we were also directly affected by the situation. We, being a small aggregator, we're looking to obviously scale, and we were, very, very, not very close. We were literally like, pens on the table with the contract waiting to be signed on on a big debt facility that was going to, kind of take us maybe to the next level. And this is like right when the war, started in the Ukraine. A few weeks went by, and the funding group was basically like, guys, we need to put this on hold. And that was something we were working for, for a very long time. I can say that in retrospect, everything's for the good. And it really helped us kind of focus in. We've been very, very focused ever since on kind of, the brands that we already acquired, making sure that all the systems are in place, kind of working inward on our, operation. And now we're kind of back out there, now that things are kind of a little more, that's behind us, and we're kind of very, very comfortable to go to the next level. So we're very much in that position now where we're, going out to a raise. And I discussed with you, I won't necessarily get into too many details, but like, again, we don't come from a VC background. And even though we were very close to kind of closing this very interesting, funding deal that would maybe propel us to the next level, we're currently, working on a different, funding vehicle to fund these acquisitions. And again, besides our team performance and, abilities and track record, one of the things we're talking about is, like you said, like the opportunity. So obviously, we all know that a lot of the bigger buyers out there are kind of, either slowing down or stopping with acquisitions. So that obviously kind of flips the needle, back to, it was a seller's market up until a few months ago. And it's definitely a buyer's market today, because again, once the volume of buyers just, went down quite drastically. So it's kind of back in the buyer's field. So it obviously gives us as buyers, a much better kind of take on things. And that's obviously one of the things we're trying to pitch. Like, you have to, we've been running our brands, from the beginning of COVID, supply chain issues. Like there's an abundance of, hard and, not easy things on business that we went through. Obviously the markets are not easy now. And, even Amazon and e-commerce in general are, going down a bit and so on. But there's nothing to do. We can't take too much of that in. I think that's also just something in the mindset. Like, yeah, times are tough. But that's what we're exactly trying to kind of say. Like, times are tough. Now's the time to do business. We gotta, continue going, raise funds now, because, us as buyers, it's a buyer's market now. So, let's go out there and make more acquisitions. The team's here, the ability's here, everything's here. Pour capital into that for acquisitions, and we're ready to go and continue going.
So, firstly, we didn't talk about whether we'd talk about that part on the show or not, and I appreciate the transparency, and again, I think it's really helpful for people to understand that, like, these things happen. Don't bet your entire, you didn't bet your house on it, right? You didn't say, well, if we don't hit this capital raise, then the business is turned to shit here. Exactly. That was never the case. This was an opportunity that you were looking to do. And obviously macro environmental factors came into effect. And what's even more is, like, I love how you put it in saying, like, it's a learning experience that you take from that process, and you'll make better decisions moving forward. And what's more is, like, even if you'd raised that capital back then, it might have been too early, and multiples might have still been higher than they are today. And, like, I mean, it's not like everything happens for a reason that you're hearing from me right now. But what I'm saying is, like, two things. There's no such thing, in my opinion, as a loss. It's you either learn from it, or you move forward. There's no, it's a learning 100%, opportunity.
I agree with that 100%. And I think that, we're getting a bit into maybe psychology and entrepreneurial spirit, but like, you can't have any other mindset. You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, we were very, I told you this before, we were very invested in the deal, very kind of like laser focused on it. And obviously once we saw that it didn't pan out, obviously, harsh, very difficult. Everyone was bummed out, but, it's like onward and upward. We have a good business, we have a good team, we have brands, let's get going. Will it take us another few months to raise that next round? How will we raise that next round? What's lying ahead? Recession, wars and whatnot, yeah, it is what it is. You gotta, push through day by day. Just kind of,
We're about due for one here. It's the summer.
Wait, sorry.
I said we're about due for one here in Israel. It's the summer.
Yeah. Exactly. So yeah, I mean, again, that's just kind of the mindset you need to have. And, again, that's just kind of what's driving us forward. You got to stick to what's happening. You have good things going. If you didn't close the deal, you'll close it next time. Close a smaller deal, a bigger deal, different one, doesn't matter. And just kind of, got to continue pushing through, going forward. Obviously, like I said, I really feel that us not doing acquisitions in the past few months, like you said, it really helped us kind of, okay, let's see what we have. Let's see again, what systems we have in place, how we're managing it. The amount that we learned on our operation in the past few months from us probably not doing these acquisitions was tremendous. And now looking back at it, I can say, these are things that if we were going to do acquisitions before we knew all this and before we had all this in place, that wasn't good. So, now things are very, very, strong. We're very, very confident. We're, just got to bring in that next kind of deal and run with it. And it will come. You'll chip away at it. You'll meet enough people. We'll close it.
Yeah. Like I kept saying to you earlier, like slow and steady wins the race. And
slow and steady. Yeah. Slow and steady.
And if you got to get that operation run, we can
100%.
I think everyone can learn from what happened with Thrasio, right? And for those who aren't familiar with sort of their journey, they were the fastest unicorn in history, profitable unicorn in history. Took them 18 months to hit profitable $1 billion valuation, incredible stuff. They went on to raise a total of $3.4 billion over the course of about three to 4 years, and grew to, I think, close to about 2,000 full-time employees. And probably 2 or 3 months ago, they were no longer profitable. They're actually burning cash. They ultimately ended out letting go of about 20% of their workforce. So we're looking at about 500 people here. And they've had a new CEO come in. They're totally restructuring. They've hired this really expensive consultancy to do the work that Escala could have done. We should have charged. But anyway, the point in all of this is, firstly, the model isn't broken. It's extremely hard.
It's not broken at all.
It's extremely hard to scale a business and acquire. I think they acquired like 200 and maybe close to 280 companies over the course of a 4-year period. I mean, that just makes my head spin. I've spoken to former employees there, and there were some days where they literally, some Mondays for the Monday morning call that they have, there was up to about 100 new starters in a single week. I mean, it's just it's a crazy thing to grow at that level. And, this was sort of something that we anticipated. I'd say us internally, we were like, this just doesn't make sense to grow at this pace and be able to handle it operationally. And so in all of that, the lesson is, if you get your operation right, if you can actually understand how to incrementally grow your operation, then ultimately, your business is going to be better for it. And so again, coming back to it, and why I was like, I really wanted you to come on the podcast, is that you've got the most organic story. It's not like, look at my, pedigreed resume and the college that I went to and all this stuff. It's like, well,
I don't have much of a resume. My resume is I've been selling on Amazon for about 8 years and doing what I've been doing to date, But
that in itself, you've done the work. You know what I mean? You've experienced.
We've always said we've been in the trenches. We've been in the trenches. We've learned the hard way. We didn't come from the top. And again, I'm not saying anything about any aggregator. It's, every person comes from where they come from, but we came from the bottom. Again, not in like a, feel good for me. But again, that's just like where it started from, started from scratch, from the bottom. If you would go back to ask me 7 years ago that you'll raise $1,000 from an investor, I would be like, I don't even know what that means. I don't know how that works, and so on. So we don't come from that background. We don't come from, again, a VC or, Ivy League background, but very much operationally. And yeah, I mean, I agree with you 100% that we very much like to grow organically. Like, sure, there is a room to grow, leaps and bounds. But I think those leaps and bounds just need to come in the right time. And like you said, when the operation is solid and you're very, very, very sure that your operation is good and you've proven to yourself, forget to others, like you feel inward, like, yeah, we can freaking do this. Again, if you go back and ask me a few years ago, if you'd asked me 2 years ago, hey, do you think you can manage, 7 or 8 different brands and raise a few $1 million? I'd be like terrified. That didn't make any sense to me. But today, again, once there's like a different level and you're very confident of what's been built and the operation and the systems, bring it on. So at this point in time, it's probably a much more, the roots are very strong, and that's, I think, the right time to kind of start really, growing and exploding and so on. Not too fast, be very sure, and, from there start kind of scaling it up.
Mate, I honestly couldn't have put it better myself, and I'm really glad that you accepted the invite and you came on, because it's just a genuine, very authentic, and real look at what it is to build any business. In this case, an Amazon aggregator from the ground up. And so, mate, I know we're coming to time here, so I'd love to just say, if there's anyone that wants to potentially sell their brand, anyone who's maybe looking to work at, a very humbly placed aggregator that's doing some really great things in the space. I mean, I'll let you tell the audience what you might be looking for or how they can get in touch. And let me hand it over to you.
Yeah, 100%. So I mean, look, obviously if you are looking to sell your, we're on the acquisition side. We like to continue building and continue kind of scaling. And if you're on the other side and looking to, hand the keys, to someone who's, I guess, quite similar, comes from the seller world and kind of been there and built their own brands and knows it very, very kind of personally, then, we're the people to reach out to. We don't acquire brands, at the sizes of, again, kind of the Thrasios of the worlds and so on. So even if you have a smaller business, it's very relevant for us. We are a smaller aggregator, which means that we also acquire smaller brands. So I know, again, that's a niche that is even less, kind of touched by the larger groups out there. So that's one. And the second thing is, as you mentioned, we're always open to kind of bring on, new team members. We don't bring on 100 team members, a month though. So like you said, we're still a small company, and also handpicked, but also just like we said, we're not scaling in such a a pace. Another thing we did, and again, this is kind of something that we've been thinking for a while, if we want to put the effort into, but we did start a newsletter recently, and that newsletter is actually really taking, like you said, I think the authenticity of the journey and like what we've learned along the way. And again, just looking to share it and, kind of send our insights and, what we've learned along the way. And again, in a variety of different aspects, maybe, Amazon, supply chain, off Amazon, business, and so on. And we just, started kind of gathering all of that together. And, whoever is interested in hearing about it. So we started a newsletter, which, again, very, very good content. And we're looking to kind of give back, share with the world. Can go to Enso Brands /newsletter if you want to sign up. And I think that's that.
Amazing. Well, we'll actually add that to the show notes as well. So if you're listening here on whatever platform, we'll put that link in. You can sign up. I'm definitely going to hit subscribe on the back of this. Gilad, mate, thank you so much for your time, and looking forward to actually, ultimately we're in the same country or in different cities at the moment, but I'm sure we'll solve that equation in the not too distant future, and I look forward to having a beer, mate.
Perfect, Yoni. Thank you very much for having me. It was a real pleasure.